Hi, I'm David, a recent graduate from Edgehill University with a passion for UX design and improving things. This video is going to take you through three different projects completed, a small brief, a large brief, and the portfolio site we're looking at now. Getting into the small brief, the task here was to produce a design and develop a solution to help promote a single product on a single web page with original content. Some of the requirements here were that I could only have original content. The code had to be semantic and well commented. The process here, I began looking at Candle e-commerce websites to see what sort of facts and details and key features they gave users essentially. Uh, this was done so as I could get a better understanding of what information to put on my designs. Uh, so using this information, then a set of sketches were produced and then they were done with 5-second tests. After that, then um, this would give a direction of design which would allow me to then proceed with high fidelity prototyping and then also a HTML CSS build. Here you can see one of the wireframes that were produced, and these are a little bit higher fidelity than a standard wireframe because the fact that I was doing user testing, I wanted users to be aware of certain things and what they were. Moving on to the photography, this was a key part of the original content. Uh, Originally, it was just that I was aiming to have the candle just on its own. This would have been done taking photos of the candle with a white background, a white ground, and then deleting that from the photo and leaving a transparent background. However, with the size and shape of the candle jars and the material, that didn't work out too well, and the photos didn't look great. So then that allowed me to move on to this sort of design where I've got some natural greenery and wood in the background, and I feel like that overall helps promote the natural scents and wax of the candle. After the photography was done, I was able to move on to the high fidelity mock-ups. Uh, and this was quite simple as the wireframing had already been done and the photography was done. It was quite simple to just produce the design, and the longest part was deciding what colors I wanted to use and the sizing of some different elements just to make sure it all fit together and it looked good. The solution then, in the end, I feel like it met all of the requirements and it adequately sold what is considered to be a quite straightforward and standard product. And it also provided a great base for further developing my user research skills, as these were something I feel like I lacked confidence in before. Just looking into the code for this, looking at the index page, we can see the form. Because a nice little feature of this website is uh, this solution is that the images in the background change based on which form that you've got. Uh, so the product form is essentially just inside an article tag, and then with CSS that is split into a flex box, and the image is floated to one side and the form is floated to the other. But looking at the JavaScript, you can see the JavaScript here. It listens out for anything on an input tag, and then we narrow that down to anything that is within the form of the ID of sent. This just means that we don't get uh, any forms with just any random inputs, um, changing details on the website where we don't want it to. And then it just selects um, the different candles, the different element by ID here is product, and then it changes that background to that color. In this case, it's a gradient. That works based on the value of the select form um, that the user clicks on. You can see here we also change the alt text and the source, so that allows us to change the images as well as just changing the background. And we change the alt tag as well because then it keeps the website accessible for everybody. Moving then into the portfolio site process, the the task here was to develop a site that would allow employers to view what work had been done easily, and any other people who really just want to look at the site and see what's been done. So the requirements for this were quite straightforward. Some of them included just providing an easy way to make contact and presenting a knowledge and understanding of the processes followed. So the sort of overall process here was to look at different portfolio sites within the UX field and gain an understanding of what people were trying to present in the field with their own sites. This was then also followed up with some job spec analysis where I looked at what skills employers wanted, and then together I was able to produce a sort of like a list of requirements that both employers wanted to see and people were trying to show off. And most commonly, you've seen some stuff about user research, wireframing, and prototyping, the three sort of main areas. So after that was done, I was able to wireframe out and then produce a high fidelity mockup and then code out the site in HTML and CSS. Here you can see one of the wireframes produced for the desktop index page. You can see that we've got our header, our text, and then our three pieces of work. And this is just recent work, which is it only shows the most three recent pieces of work because that might be what you want to show off the most, and you want to show people what you're currently doing and focusing on. And then we've also got our footer with the copyright, and then some social icons. Looking into the high fidelity mockups, you can see that the design changed slightly in the fact that we have a column of of works cards, sorry, instead of a row. That was done because having them in a row they felt really cramped, and reducing the size of them meant the images weren't very clear. So you can see that this design looks quite clean, quite modern and sleek, which is exactly the feel that I wanted to go for. The build ended up being a bit harder than anticipated, trying to get all of the different like elements and the different card sizes to all fit together on some of the pages. Uh, but eventually, I was able to work through that with some help and some searching, so it was quite easy in the end to get sorted. This screenshot shows a bit of a brief snippet of the code. This is like one of the pages and some CSS and stuff. Uh, and overall, I feel like the solution, having followed through this process, the solution then really does meet all of the requirements that were identified, and it also allows me to show off all of the features and key things about each project that I want to show off. Just looking at the website, we've got the homepage, which has our three different build projects on it, and they've got a nice hover effect, which just gives you the project name and sort of a call to action to click if you want to find out more about each one. And then we've got our footer with our social media links and the copyright. Looking in the my work section, we've got three pieces of work here because that is all that I've got so far for the website. But normally this would then be more of a grid view with a lot of different pieces of work once more are ready to be added to it. These have a nice sort of light blue background and the project sort of name, and that's already on show because looking at a list of these, you'll want to view that quite quickly rather than having to hover over each one individually. The resume link just downloads a copy of my resume so as you can view exactly what you would get if I submitted an application to a business. And then the contact page provides an easy way for anybody to get in touch if they haven't noticed the footer. There's links to Twitter and LinkedIn where I'm quite active, and then also an email which I'm active on as well. So the final piece of work then shows the bespoke messaging system, and this I was for this I was tasked with designing a messaging system that would allow users on a sort of a summer camp application form to it would allow them to look at frequently asked questions, message customer support agents, and do this all while not having to go away from their application. So the requirements for this sort of set out as messages are only allowed 250 characters. You should be able to send and receive messages without leaving your current page, and your message history should be saved. Things like that, so that users have the most positive experience. Most of those requirements were set out from the client, uh, so the operating bounds were a little bit stricter on this than what I would normally have done, and that changed the process up a little bit with how I decided to tackle it. Um, so I decided to go straight into the wireframing and the mock-ups, and then do the user testing on those after, and decide whether the designs in that were good or if I should then take a step back and repeat until we get a design that's actually functional and users like. So to begin with, we started off with the wireframing, and here you can see the second iteration of the sort of messages, sort of customer service window component, I would say. And you can see we've got the FAQs here, and then a text box for users to use to message people, so they can view these questions and answers first before they send a message. And these are individually dropped down, so you can only have one at a time to prevent you overfilling your screen with lots of information that you don't need and then overwhelming you. Then the messages screen here just shows a list of people that you've of previous conversations, really, and any so there's obviously ongoing. You'll get a little notification to show you that you've got new messages, and then in here is the sort of what you would see if you were actually talking to a customer service agent, and you've got a little picture of them and a name, so as the customer service just feels a lot more human in total. So that then allowed me to move on to the high fidelity mockups, and because the client had already provided a layout, I was able to add my sort of component just on top of that and see how it would look. And I feel like the design here, you can see it fits on quite well. You can still access your whole application essentially, and then you can view messages compared to with what you've already done. On mobile, however, it has to take up the full size of the screen just because of the reduced size of a mobile screen. Uh, but you can still access this from anywhere on the site and do it from anywhere. Um, then I tested it with some users, getting them to carry out some basic tasks such as finding messages to this person, looking at the FAQ question, the third FAQ question, and stuff like that. Um, because then that then showed me that this solution that I'm proposing actually worked because the users were all able to carry out the tasks sufficiently, and they all followed what would be a standard user flow for doing it too. So overall, I feel like this solution did meet all the requirements set out by the client, but it also really works good for the user because they can clearly see and follow what to do without much instruction. It's quite intuitive to use. And then I think if this project were to be carried on, the mock-ups could be made a little bit more detailed for a little bit further testing that could be done before any coding. So that is everything on the website to show, and I would like to say thank you for listening.